Hi, I'm Mark, and this is My Electric Life. Hi, and welcome back. So when I moved into this home, I hadn't actually given much thought to how I was going to deal with outdoor cooking, and I do like to eat outdoors. This house has a lovely alfresco area, and the climate where I live is perfect for outdoor entertaining and outdoor cooking, so I needed to go and get myself a barbecue. And initially I was going to do what I've always done, which is go and buy a gas barbecue, but then a friend at work kind of shamed me a little bit. She was aware of the project that I was undertaking, and she said, well, why aren't you buying an electric barbecue? And I thought, well, yeah, she's right. However, in the past, when I've looked at electric barbecues, they've always been that kind which is just like a piece of cast iron on top of some sort of element. And really, that just cooks like the stovetop in your kitchen. It will cook the meat, but you don't get those beautiful barbecue flavours that you can only get when you char something on a high temperature. And also, in a gas barbecue, a lot of the fats and juices fall down onto the element or the coals underneath, and that turns into smoke and gives you that wonderful smokiness. And I didn't want to give that up, so I shopped around and I discovered, well, there are in fact electric barbecues that will replicate that. So this one here is called a Crossray infrared barbecue, and inside here at the bottom you've got two infrared elements, and they work just like your gas burners inside your gas barbecue. So they get up to a very high temperature, and then they radiate that heat up into the grate at the top, and there's a hot plate at the back, and they're made of cast iron, and they work exactly the same as your gas barbecue. So when you put your steak on there, it will get seared on that hot iron, but more importantly, any of the juices that drip out of there and the fats will fall onto those radiant heat elements at the bottom, and then they become smoke and volatiles that go back up into the meat and give you that wonderful barbecue flavour that you can only get from a barbecue. So there are other brands, and I'm not necessarily suggesting that this is the best, but I found this to be a very good one. So what I'm going to do now is I'll turn this on, and it takes about 15 minutes to heat up, which is probably about twice as long as it takes a gas barbecue to heat up. But that's not really a concern for me, because while that's happening, I'm going to be in there making my salad. And then when I come out, this will be up to temperature, and I can throw the steak on there and cook that just how I want it. So I'm going to turn this on now so it can preheat. And that's the most simple thing to do, because you've got just two knobs on here. One is the element knob, and you can turn that from low to high. So I'm going to put that on to high because I want it to heat up quickly. And at the back there's another really handy knob, which is a timer. So the timer actually, you can, if I'm going to be cooking for 30 minutes, sorry, I can put that timer, say, onto 40 minutes. And what will happen then is, if I forget to turn this off and I walk away and don't come back, it will turn itself off, which is really important because, well, you don't want to be burning out the elements, but also you don't want to be wasting a lot of energy. This could be going all night if it didn't turn itself off, and I had one of those senior moments and forgot to turn it off. So that's a very handy little feature. So I'll put this on to high, and I'll put this timer here on to 30 minutes, as I said. And when I come back, we'll look at how to cook the steak. I had a bit of a lesson in how to cook the perfect steak when I got this barbecue from a friend of mine. So I'm going to share that with you, so you'll learn something aside from just good energy practices. You might learn something about cooking a good steak on an electric barbecue. So I'll come back in about 15 minutes. I'm back. So here is the steak du jour. It's a nice New York cut from the local supermarket, nothing special. I haven't put any herbs or any seasoning on here because I've got this beautiful herb butter to go on it after it's been cooked. So I've just given it an oiling, and that's all it needs. And I'm going to check and see how we're going with temperature on the barbecue. I forgot to mention what this little appliance is here beside the barbecue. I'm going to cover this in another video, but this is a Breville pizza oven, and it's a fantastic appliance, so I will cover that in another video, so stay tuned for that. So I've brought with me a thermometer, infrared thermometer here, just to check the temperature of the plate. It says on the thermometer on top of the hood about 220, so we'll just see. It'll be a lot hotter inside on the plate. Let's have a look. Yeah, much hotter. So that's 420 degrees, that hot plate at the back. That's cast iron, and the grate at the front is 373 degrees, so you can see how hot this thing can get. But that's a good temperature to start with, I find. You want it to be high because you actually want a bit of charring to occur, and you actually want to cook the meat quickly. So I got this recipe or this methodology from a friend who came here shortly after I bought this barbecue, and I was going to cook a steak, and he was sort of a bit muddle-headed about what to do and how to use this barbecue, and he said, look, it doesn't matter what the barbecue is, the methodology is the same. And he explained to me that all you've got to do is take the thickness of your steak. So if it's, say, 10 millimeters thick, then it needs to be cooked for 10 minutes. So that's 5 minutes each side. You don't mess about with it once it's on the plate. You slap it on the plate, leave it for 5 minutes with the hood down, and then at 5 minute mark, you turn it over, do another 5 minutes, then give it 2 minutes to rest, and you'll have a perfect steak. And boy, well, he was right when he said that. He cooked that steak for me, and I've got to say, it was the best steak I've ever tasted. It was juicy, and it was tender, and it had that wonderful barbecue smokiness. It was just delightful. So whenever I cook a steak now, I always use his methodology, and it's very simple anyway. So I'm just going to slap this on that barbecue plate now. Well, actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to get my phone and put a 5-minute timer on my phone, because the timing is critical. You need to make sure that you do in fact cook it for 5 minutes, and no more and no less. That will give you the perfect medium cooked steak. Of course, if you want something a bit rarer, then you might cook it for a minute or two less. But I like my steak medium, so I'm going to do 5 minutes each side on this steak, and I've got my timer on my phone to make sure I don't forget. And this is going straight on that plate now. So on we go. Oh, a lovely sizzle noise. We'll close that hood down, and we'll start that timer, and that's that. Okay, so while that's cooking, don't be concerned if you see a bit of smoke coming out the back. That's actually a good sign. While that's cooking, I'm just going to go over some specs here on this Crossray barbecue. So this is a 1500 watt barbecue. So it's drawing about half the amount of power that my stovetop draws, so it's not an excessive amount of power. It's just running off a normal outlet on the wall here. And if you say you're going to cook, well, let's say we heat the thing up for 15 minutes and then we cook for 10, that's 25, so let's call it 30 minutes. If we're cooking for 30 minutes with this, then that means that we're going to use 0.75 of a kilowatt hour of energy. And at the rate I'm paying for energy out of the grid, about 40 cents a kilowatt hour, that means it would cost me about 30 cents to cook this steak. Of course, it doesn't cost me anything because I've stored the energy away during the day from my roof into the battery. So this is being powered from the battery right now, so it's not actually costing me anything. But if you didn't have solar and you didn't have a battery, it's going to cost you about 30 cents to cook a meal on this, which I think is pretty reasonable, and it would be less than you would be paying to use your stovetop. So that gives you an idea of that. It comes with this kitchen, which is lovely. It's got a fridge in it, and it's got storage and everything. And it's really handy because, for me it's very handy because it has this extra bench space out the side there where I've put the pizza oven. So this is a wonderful sort of set of appliances. It's not cheap, so it cost all up about $3,000, and I know a lot of people will go, wow, that's a lot of money for a barbecue, but there's a lot in here. And as with all electrical appliances, you'll get a payback over time because you're not using fossil fuels, and you're not, in my case, not using grid electricity. So this will pay itself off over time. So I'm not worried about the upfront cost. And you know, it's a wonderful thing to have here. It's so easy to use, so easy to keep clean and maintain, and I use it a lot because it's nice in these summer days to be cooking outside. Okay, there it is, done. 10-minute steak, cooked just how I like it. Beautiful lines on there, and I'm just going to pop that butter on there so that can melt over the top, and I'll give it a couple of minutes to rest, and that'll be ready to eat. And so here it is, my delicious, juicy, cooked with no fossil fuel steak and salad. And of course, what would a steak be without a lovely glass of red to go with it? So I hope you enjoyed this video, and until the next time, bon appetito.